Welcome to the Crawcast. I'm your host, George Krawczak, and these are my predictions for week 2 of the NFL season. Week 1 was a very exciting week. Kind of interesting because a lot of quarterbacks played really bad. And now we're in week 2, and it's tough because these teams haven't broken away into like their sections yet of great, middling, and terrible. So we don't really know a whole lot. But we'll use these tools to kind of predict on who's going to win this week. And I also just want to let you know I will always have at least one, maybe two upsets of the week because I think it's boring just predicting the who's going to win or like going on with the odds on favorite who's going to win. And I would greatly appreciate if you can hit that subscribe button like it owes you money. I'm really trying to hit that 500 and then 1,000 subscriber mark. I'd greatly appreciate that. If you want my more immediate thoughts on things, make sure to follow me on Twitter/X at Crawcast. I'll be live tweeting almost every single game, so that'll be more of an instant reactions, and you don't have to wait for a video like this. And now that that's out of the way, let's get started. So the first game is the Washington Commanders, who are 1-0 versus or at the Green Bay Packers, who are also 1-0, and I think the Green Bay Packers are going to win. So this game is going to be a very interesting one because both of these are two pretty good teams. So as we look at last week, the Green Bay Packers completely destroyed the Detroit Lions, kind of plain and simple. Other than the Colts victory over the Dolphins, I would say this was the most dominant victory. And I think everyone acknowledges, hey, the Lions, even though they look terrible, they're better than the Dolphins are. So this was just a huge victory for the Packers, and everyone looked great. The defense looked great. The offense looked great. Just the Green Bay Packers looked really good in general. And Micah Parsons, he was absolutely fantastic. So the keys to this game, the Packers, their corners concern me. When Jared Goff was not pressured, the corners did struggle quite a bit against the Lions receivers. But Jared Goff was not didn't have a clean pocket for many plays. That was very, very limited. Their pass rush was absolutely fantastic, especially with Micah Parsons. Lucas Van Ness looked good. Rashawn Gary looked good. Micah Parsons looked excellent. And this Washington offensive line is not that great. And so now if we're taking a turn looking to Washington at their game against the Giants kind of held them in check. It was 6-14, or the Commanders were winning 14-6 almost the entire game, and really didn't look that impressive. Their offense was shut down by the Giants' defense, and the Giants' defense is a pretty good defense. But the Giants' offense was terrible. And I don't know who to give credit to. Was that just Russell Wilson being terrible, and the Giants' offense being terrible, or was that this Washington defense being so great and amazing and shutting down the the Giants offense, and that's a tough one. So overall, I do think the Packers are a better team, but they've also historically have struggled against mobile running quarterbacks, and obviously Jane Daniels is a mobile quarterback. Honestly, I think this game can go really either way, but I think the Packers are an elite team, and I think they are better than the Commanders, and so I am picking the Green Bay Packers to win this one. Yeah, and I do think the Packers are going to win, but something that does make me at least a little bit nervous about the Packers is their injuries. Nate Hobbs, their number one corner, is injured and may not play, and then right tackle Zach Tom might not play, and then their left guard Aaron Banks might not play. And those offensive linemen are huge and key contributors, especially Zach Tom. But overall, I do think the Packers are a better team, and I do think they will win. But I think this will be close and can go either way. The next game is the New York Giants, who are 0-1, at the Dallas Cowboys, who are also 0-1. And this is my big upset of the week. I think the New York Giants are going to win. So yes, this is my big upset. I think the Giants are going to win. So both these teams did well. So how do I say this? The Giants defense looked really, really good against their game against the Commanders, but their offense struggled mightily. Russell Wilson looked terrible. He was just terrible, plain and simple. And I understand there's calls for Jackson Dart to start, and I get it. Jackson Dart had an amazing preseason and it was really, really good during preseason. But I think you need to stick to the program where Jackson Dart is a rookie quarterback. You want him to sit and learn the offense, sit behind these veteran quarterbacks, and not play. And I think you just need to stick to the plan no matter what. Because even if your team sucks, you do get a high draft pick. And I just don't think there's a lot of benefits for Jackson Dart playing because then he loses his confidence and then he could potentially play bad in the future. And so I would stick with Russell Wilson and hope he kind of figures it out. And I think he will figure it out in this game because on the flip side, the Cowboys, their offense was really, really good against the Eagles' defense. Yes, the Eagles are missing Jalen Carter, but the Cowboys' offense looked really, really great. And then the Cowboys' defense, it was terrible. Like it just showed up in the second half, but overall the Cowboys defense did not play well. So you have a terrible offense in the Giants against a terrible defense in the Cowboys, and then you have a great offense in the Cowboys versus a great defense in the Giants. So I think this game really could go either way. And again, I think it was a mistake for the Cowboys to get rid of Micah Parsons because they're missing a game-changing player like that on their defense. And overall, I do think the Giants are going to win. The next game is the Seattle Seahawks, who are 0-1, versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 1-0. And I think the Steelers are going to win. So this is an interesting game because it's two offenses that got two new quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers does currently lead the NFL in touchdown passes with 4, and he looked really, really good. Unless he was pressured. When he struggled a little bit under pressure, but overall he had a near perfect game. The Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line is a problem. They need to play better, plain and simple. But then also on the flip side, the Seahawks didn't really look good at all whatsoever. And so the Steelers struggled against the Jets. But I think that was more of a unique situation because the Jets are such an insanely heavy run defense or run offense that it felt like they didn't trust Justin Fields to pass as much. They didn't trust his deep ball. He had one really good play with Darius Slay getting burnt, and then other than that, Justin Fields really didn't throw the ball that far. It was a lot of like short, easy passes. So it was a unique situation against the Steelers, and I think the Steelers will figure it out. I do. Jackson Smith and Jigba is a really great receiver that you do have to worry about, but Sam Darnold struggled, and then Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet were just okay, and overall, the 49ers were a very beat up and injured team, and I think that helped them a lot. So overall, I am picking the Pittsburgh Steelers because I just think their defense needs to get back on track, and this is a game that'll be like kind of a get right game. And then Sam Darnold, he does need to prove himself because his first game he did not look very good, and he just needs to play better. Plain and simple, he needs to play better. The next game is the Los Angeles Rams, who are 1-0, against the Tennessee Titans, who are 0-1. And I think the winner is going to be the Rams. So this is going to be an interesting game. To me, this has like the biggest shot of being a blowout game because the Rams looked good and the Titans didn't. Where the Rams looked fairly decent against a really good Houston Texans defense. The Texans defense is going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they didn't get completely shut down because they scored 2 touchdowns. But overall, the Rams offense looked impressive, but it was kind of like a bend but don't break for the defense, where it's like they're really good at driving the ball down, but they struggled in the red zone and they struggled to put points up on the board. And then the Titans, they were just kind of a disaster. Like, yes, their defense looked good, but I'm not sure how much of that was the defense looking good versus Bo Nix looking terrible. And then Cam Ward did not look good. Yes, the receivers dropped some balls, and the receivers did not help Cam Ward, but Cam Ward just didn't look good. And honestly, I give Cam Ward a pass because he's a rookie. And I know with these recent seasons, like with Jaden Daniels and with CJ Stroud and Justin Herbert and Baker Mayfield, you expect these rookie quarterbacks to play really well. But that is a rarity. A lot of rookie quarterbacks do not play well their first year. And so I do give Cam Ward a bit of a pass for not playing well because he is a rookie. And then the Rams, their defense is really good, and it seems like their defense is going to give Cam Ward a lot of problems. And then the offense of Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, all really excellent. I think this does have the biggest shot of being a blowout game. The next game is the Buffalo Bills, who are 1-0, at the New York Jets, who are 0-1, and I think the Bills are going to win. Although I am picking the Bills, I think this game is going to be much closer than expected. And this game I really went back and forth on if this was going to be one of my upsets of the week, because like I said earlier about the Jets when talking about the Steelers, the Jets are in a unique situation where they have such a good running offense that a lot of defenses aren't prepared for it. Since a lot of quarterbacks do not run and are focused on throwing the ball, they play deep. They expect the pass. They do not play for the run. And then once we saw last week with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, I'm not saying that Breece Hall and Justin Fields are on their level, but the Bills struggled to stop the run. And the Bills' defense is not very good, and the Bills' defense is probably going to struggle in this game. The only reason why I picked the Bills is because Josh Allen, once he puts his like Superman cape on, he is unstoppable. And maybe Josh Allen can get shut down during this game. I don't know, but overall, Josh Allen, he was too impressive in the last week's game against the Ravens to, I feel like, not pick him. Because if he can do a similar thing like that, granted, there's going to be a lot of expectations out of him, and he's going to have to play like that quite a few times with how bad this Bills defense is. But Josh Allen, when he is on fire, and he cannot be stopped. So I am picking the Buffalo Bills to win this game. The next game is the New England Patriots, who are 0-1, against the Miami Dolphins, who are 0-1 as well. I think the Patriots are going to win. I do think the Patriots are going to win this one. I think it's kind of an even matchup. Like, they're both 0-1, and the Patriots looked fairly decent against the Raiders, but I think they're more evenly matched up against the Raiders, where the the Raiders and Patriots are kind of on equal footing, where I think they're going to be middling teams in the sense that I don't think they're quite going to be playoff teams, but they're going to be in the middle of the pack where they're not going to be terrible. Whereas the Dolphins, I think they can go any way possible, because I am a much bigger Tua believer than a lot of people out there. Because I think most of the time when Tua plays, he is good. The issue is just him staying on the field and staying healthy, because that is a quite a bit of an issue for him because he struggles to be healthy with the concussions. And so you do have Tua fighting for his job, Mike McDaniel fighting for his job, and like I can see this almost any way possible going. And it is going to be interesting how Tua plays in response to this. I do think the Patriots are probably not as good as a team as the Colts, but overall, I think the Patriots are going to win. I think it's kind of the safer bet, and I think they are a better team than the Dolphins. And well, it's only we're right now we're on the countdown clock to see if Tyreek Hill gets traded to the Chiefs. The next game is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 1-0, against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are also 1-0. And this is my other upset of the week. I think the Jaguars are going to win. So yes, I think the Jaguars are going to win. And is kind of, you might say, why am I saying that? Because I think the Bengals are clearly a better team than the Jaguars. I don't think the Jaguars are very good. I think they're just against the Panthers, who are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. And so I think they kind of got lucky there. So why am I picking the Jaguars? It's because the Bengals continuously struggle until like week 4. Like, I can tell you already, probably until like maybe week 3 or week 4, I'm picking the Bengals to lose because I can't explain it. It makes no sense to me. Why is Joe Burrow so bad at the beginning of the season? Why? I don't know. He's a good quarterback. He played well in preseason. He plays well almost every year. It's just the first like 4 games of the year, he just can't do it. Like, it makes no logical explanation. They should have lost last week if it wasn't for a couple of key drops and a couple of key missed field goals. The Bengals should have lost. Like, again, I can't explain it. The Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they all just suck weeks 1 through 4, and that is why I'm picking the Jaguars. No real explanation or logic to it. It makes no sense to me why they can't do it. Again, it makes no sense to me. So I think the Bengals are a better team. I think the Bengals are probably a playoff team, and I don't think the Jaguars are going to do that well this year. I think they're going to be towards the bottom of the pack. But just the Bengals, just for whatever reason, can't do it, and Joe Burrow can't do it weeks 1 through 4, so I'm picking the Jaguars. The next game is the San Francisco 49ers, who are 1-0, versus the New Orleans Saints, who are 0-1, and I think the Saints are going to win. So I think the Saints are going to win. This is kind of me just basing off on injuries, where I think the 49ers are a better team, and I think the Saints are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. It's just that Brock Purdy's hurt and probably won't play. George Kittle's not going to play. Jawan Jennings not going to play. Brandon Ayuk's not going to play. The 49ers are beat up and injured. And I don't know what's up with the 49ers. Because, like, it seems like this happens every other year where, like, half the team is injured. Like, I don't know if they need, like, new strength and conditioning coaches or new doctors, or if they're just an insanely unlucky team. But something needs to change where they need to just stop getting injured all the time. And then the Saints, their defense didn't look particularly good, but Spencer Rattler looked competent. And that is great news because He went 0-7 last year, and in those games, he looked like the worst quarterback in the NFL. He looked absolutely horrible. Like he couldn't play, like he didn't belong in the NFL. He looked terrible. And then last week against the Cardinals, I thought it was a big shocker because I thought the Cardinals defense was going to be pretty good. And although he wasn't great, he was competent. He didn't really make any huge mistakes. He played, I'd say, above average. And that's great for Spencer Rattler. So I do think the 49ers are a better team, but man, injuries are just killing them, and they got to get healthier sooner or later. And they just, like I said, just got to somehow get healthier. The next game is the Cleveland Browns, who are 0-1, at the Baltimore Ravens, who are 0-1, and I think the Ravens are going to win. This is another one of those games where I did kind of go a little bit back and forth on who I thought was going to win because the Browns should have won last week. So the Ravens, they also should have won last week. They are a really good football team. Their offense is really great. Their defense is supposed to be good, but I'm going to be honest, I think that was more just Josh Allen being amazing as opposed to the Ravens defense being that bad. But they are a divisional opponent. The Ravens do seem to struggle against the Browns quite a bit for whatever reason. And the Browns' defense is really, really great. It's just that Joe Flacco's kind of letting them down. Joe Flacco didn't play particularly well last week, and he did struggle a bit. And the defense is what kept them in the game. And so the Browns' defense, and also how much credit do they deserve? Because yes, they shut down the Bengals' offense, but like I previously stated, the Bengals' offense just can't play in the first couple of weeks for whatever reason. And so I think this is going to be a really, really tight game. I think it's going to be a really close game, and I do think it'll go either way. I haven't looked at like the betting markets or the odds yet. I assume the Ravens are probably wildly ahead because everyone expects the Ravens to make the playoffs, and I don't think the Browns are really expected to make the playoffs, but I do think this is going to be really close. I am picking the Ravens though because they are a better team, plain and simple. Their offense is electric. Lamar Jackson's great. Derrick Henry's great. And then their defense, again, I think they underperformed, but then the big asterisk of you underperform against Josh Allen. Almost all defenses underperform against Josh Allen. That's just how it goes because that's who he is. And so I think this is kind of more of a get right game for the Ravens where, maybe build some confidence in the defense and start playing well. The next game is the 0-1 Chicago Bears versus the 0-1 Detroit Lions. I think the Lions are going to win. So this is the Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions, both teams that really disappointed week one. So if you look at the Lions, nothing went right. Their defense looked terrible, their offense looked terrible, everything that could go wrong went wrong. They were just a terrible team overall against the Packers. And then if you look at the Bears, the first quarter, the Bears looked really good. They looked really, really great the first quarter, and then the next 3 quarters of the game, they looked absolutely terrible. So I'll kind of break both these teams down. So the Bears, I do think there's at least a little bit of positives in last week's game, meaning that look at Caleb Williams. He looked really good for that first quarter. And I think that shows a proof of concept where it shows, okay, Caleb Williams can play in the NFL. He looked comfortable. He looked great in Ben Johnson's offense. There is a proof of concept that things can go well for the Bears. It's just that can Caleb Williams pull that out consistently for the rest of the game? Like, it's kind of interesting where everyone's all high on J.J. McCarthy and low on Caleb Williams. And it's kind of like just they're reversed, where Caleb Williams looked amazing in the first quarter and sucked the second, third, and fourth quarter, whereas J.J. McCarthy was terrible the first, second, and third quarter, but looked great in the fourth quarter. So I don't think Caleb Williams deserves as much hate as he's getting. Yes, he wasn't perfect. Yes, he missed a lot of crucial throws, but at least there's some positives there is a proof of concept there. And then for the Lions, this is kind of my theory on this. They were terrible. Like no two ways about it. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, and they're terrible. But this is kind of my theory on it. Is I think the Packers and Lions kind of just switched places, especially after the Micah Parsons trade. Where if you look at last year, if you don't include the game against the Bears, because keep in mind the Packers benched their starters halfway through the game, so the Bears beat the Packers backups by last second field goal. So that game feels like it really doesn't count because they're playing their backups. The Packers beat every team they played against except for they lost to the Eagles twice, the Vikings twice, and the Lions twice. So that says, okay, this team is a really good team, but they can't beat the elite teams in the Vikings, Lions, and Eagles. And I think that's where the Lions are, where it's like I do think they are a really good team, but since Green Bay is now in that elite category, the Lions just can't hang with the Packers, but they are still going to be a good team. And like I said, it's hard to even test them and say any positives because they're not. Hutchinson didn't play well, and I understand he's just coming back, but he didn't play well. Gibbs didn't play well. Goff didn't play well. But again, I just think the Packers are such an elite team that the Lions just couldn't handle it. And I do think they're going to be fine. The one question for me is offensive coordinator. And this is just so weird to me. I looked it up, and Ben Johnson without Sean McVay or sorry, Jared Goff without Sean McVay or Ben Johnson calling the plays. He has 3 wins, 19 losses, and 1 tie. How does that happen? Jared Goff is the same quarterback without Sean McVay and Ben Johnson. Like, he's still the same person. So how come he always loses, he always plays terrible, and he just can't work with a new offensive coordinator? Again, I don't know if that's just because the Packers are really good, or if there's a serious issue if with Jared Goff, and that is concerning to me. But overall, I think the Lions are going to get back on track and look good. And then Caleb Williams just needs to show that he can play an entire game of football and not just the first quarter. The next game is the 1-0 Denver Broncos versus the 1-0 Indianapolis Colts, and I think the Denver Broncos are going to win. So I think the Broncos are going to win. This is an interesting game, and I kind of went back and forth on it a little bit, but my logic is that the big story is Bo Nix struggled a lot in this last game, but I think the Titans defense is better than the Dolphins defense. And so that's kind of my logic there, where it's like he struggled and Daniel Jones looked great, but Daniel Jones had worse competition. And this is going to be a very interesting one because I think both these teams are pretty even, where both have strong defenses, both have quarterbacks that can play decent, but are a bit inconsistent. And this one could really go either way. I am picking the Broncos, though, because the Broncos defense is really, really good. And the Colts defense, I think, is pretty good, but I think the Broncos defense is just a level above the Colts. And then it's just the offenses. I do think Bo Nix showed last year he can be a good quarterback. It's just that I don't know what happened in the last game. Like, is he on the CJ Stroud trajectory where CJ Stroud played really good his rookie season and then has been terrible ever since? And maybe that'll happen to Bo Nix, where Bo Nix played really good his rookie season and maybe he's terrible now. But I'm not giving up on Bo Nix yet. I still think he can make that like sophomore jump and just not look terrible. And then the Colts, like, again, I think these are two pretty even teams in the sense where I don't think they're spectacular, but I think they are definitely playoff caliber teams, where the Colts, their defense is good, their offense has weapons, and they just need a quarterback to not play absolutely terrible like Anthony Richardson did. And guess what? Daniel Jones played pretty good. I don't expect Daniel Jones to keep up that high level of play every single week, but Daniel Jones looked good, and so he deserves a lot of credit. And again, I think this is a very, very evenly matched game. I just think the Broncos are a little bit better. The next game is the 0-1 Carolina Panthers versus the 1-0 Arizona Cardinals, and I think the Cardinals are going to win. So this game is interesting to me because I would say blowout Cardinals. Cardinals are going to win this no matter what. But the Cardinals struggled against the Saints. Their defense was just okay. I thought their defense was going to play way better, and their offense was just kind of average. Like, I expected a lot more out of the Cardinals, especially if going against such a terrible Saints team. Whereas the Carolina Panthers, I just really don't expect anything out of them. I don't think they're very good. They're, you know, Bryce Young's top weapons are well, Jalen Cocker is injured. Adam Thielen got traded. And just the Carolina Panthers just feel like a complete and utter disaster. Like, Bryce Young was playing well at the end of last year, but I said this in every reaction video I made. He was playing well for Bryce Young. Bryce Young was terrible, and then he was playing average to above average. And now he's back to being terrible. And so I do think the Cardinals should win this. Not really any excuses for them. I do think this has a shot at being a blowout, but the Cardinals defense did not play well last week and definitely need to do better, especially since they were against a terrible Saints team last week. The next game is the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 1-0, against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 0-1. I think the Eagles are going to win. So this game is definitely very interesting because I do think the Eagles are a better team, plain and simple. And the Chiefs are really struggling at injuries, especially at the wide receiver position. So both these teams played fairly decent last week. The Chiefs were their defense struggled a lot against the Chargers, but it could just be because the Chargers are really good. But also it's kind of concerning because here's the dirty little secret about the Chiefs the past 2 years. They were not playing well because of Patrick Mahomes in the offense. Patrick Mahomes and the offense were basically average. Their defense was absolutely phenomenal and fantastic, and that's how they won tons of games the last couple of years. And now, if the defense is falling apart, that's really cause for concern. And then Patrick Mahomes' top two weapons. Rashid Rice is suspended for 6 games, and then Xavier Worthy is injured and going to miss a couple of weeks. I do think it just makes too much sense to trade for Tyreek Hill. Like, have the Dolphins eat a lot of his salary this year, and then maybe cut Tyreek Hill at the end of this year, because Tyreek Hill knows the offense, and him and Patrick Mahomes have good chemistry together, or just at least something. Like, Hollywood Brown is just not a number one. Juju Smith-Schuster's not a number one. Travis Kelce was a number one previously, and I think he's just kind of too old to be a number one anymore. And so this offense and defense are both worrying me, where the defense should be good. It just struggled quite a lot. But also, again, it was against Justin Herbert, who played amazing, and that just because could be just because Justin Herbert is very good. And then for the Philadelphia Eagles, their defense did struggle a bit quite against the Cowboys. But I think the Cowboys do have a really good offense, so that's a little bit explainable. And the Eagles were missing their best player, Jalen Carter, and now he's returning. And so I do think the Eagles defense will play better. And then their offense played pretty well. It struggled in the second half, but Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts are both fairly decent players. They didn't really do anything through the air, but their rushing attack is very good, and I think the Eagles should be able to pull this one off. The next game is the 0-1 Atlanta Falcons at the 0-1 Minnesota Vikings, and I think the Vikings are going to win. So I think the Vikings are going to win, but there's one major question mark for me on this one. What J.J. McCarthy are we going to get? In the first 3 quarters of last week's game against the Bears, J.J. McCarthy, I would say, was the worst quarterback in football. He was missing throws, he was nervous, he was terrible in the pocket. He was the worst quarterback in football last week in the first 3 quarters of the game. And then I don't know what happened, but the fourth quarter hit and something snapped, and J.J. McCarthy was fantastic in the fourth quarter. He was really, really good. So what are we getting from him? Are we getting first 3 quarters of horrible J.J. McCarthy, or are we getting fourth quarter amazing J.J. McCarthy? Or maybe J.J. McCarthy's just going to go the Tebow route, where I don't know if you guys remember Tim Tebow, but basically what would happen is in the first 3 quarters of the game, if you look at all his stats and everything, he was at the bottom, one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And then once the fourth quarter hit, a switch flipped, and he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in the fourth quarter. So that's the one question mark is I feel like what did we learn from J.J. McCarthy in week 1? And it's not much because at his low end, he's terrible. And his high end, he's great. So we don't know which J.J. McCarthy is getting. But this Vikings team is good. The running game is decent, the receivers are great, and the defense is really, really good. And then for the Falcons, Penix looked really good last week, and he deserves credit for that because in his 3 games that he started last year, he was terrible, and I didn't know what we're going to see out of him. They did have no running game whatsoever, and so that's a big concern for the Falcons. But the Falcons' defense was decent enough. And then Bijan was really good in the receiving game. So I do think the Vikings are going to win, but this really could go either way because both these teams are young teams with a lot of question marks. The next game is the 1-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the 0-1 Houston Texans, and I think the Buccaneers are going to win. So this is going to be a very interesting game because this is the Buccaneers offense, which is pretty decent, versus the Texans defense, which is one of the best defenses in the NFL. And I am leaning towards the Buccaneers because overall I think they're a better team. The Texans offense has just been terrible, and it's really been terrible the past couple of years. CJ Stroud had a really good rookie year, and then after that he's kind of sucked and just been terrible. And so if CJ Stroud cannot play offense and cannot be a good, competent quarterback, then I'd have to give it to the Buccaneers because I think the Buccaneers defense is pretty decent. And even though the Texans defense is phenomenal, as long as the the Buccaneers offense can just play average, I think the Buccaneers should be able to win this. But it also relies on CJ Stroud. Like, I don't know what's wrong with him, but he just needs to figure it out and start playing better. Like, I don't really know any solutions or what to do or what he can do, but plain and simple, he just needs to play better. And overall, I think the Buccaneers are a better team, but the Texans defense will definitely keep the Texans in it. It's just all about it's all about CJ Stroud. Can he play competent football? And I don't think he can. I think the Buccaneers are going to win this. The final game of the week is the Los Angeles Chargers, who are 1-0, at the Las Vegas Raiders, who are also 1-0, and I think the Chargers are going to win. So this is a very interesting game because I think the Chargers are going to win because Justin Herbert feels like he's on an MVP run. He was absolutely fantastic and amazing week 1, and I say he continues this. I am very high on Justin Herbert. I think he is going to do absolutely phenomenal this year. And I think the Chargers are a serious force to be reckoned with. And the biggest improvement with the Chargers that I don't think many people are talking about is Quentin Johnston. He finally figured out how to catch. He has amazing speed, he has great height, but he drops every single ball that goes his way, whereas he was really good last week. And so I am wondering, has he figured it out? And if he has, this just makes the Chargers offense more dangerous because you have Lad McConkey, who's their number 1 receiver, Quentin Johnson, who can be a receiver number 1, and Keenan Allen, who can be a receiver number 1. Like, this Chargers offense is very, very fantastic. Their defense is also very good of Khalil Mack and their corners, and overall, I just think this Chargers team is a very, very good team. And then the Raiders, I think they're overperformed. Their run game was very much not good, and Ashton Jeanty did not play well, but Geno Smith played really well, all things considered. It's against the Patriots, who I think are a middling team, but the Raiders, I think they did overperform themselves compared to previous years and kind of expectations, but I think they kind of come back down to earth where I think this will be a decently close game, but I think by the time you hit the fourth quarter, the Chargers are going to be ahead by like 14 to 17 points. I think the Chargers are going to win. And again, I think for most of the game, it'll be pretty close. And then at the end, the Chargers will break away. So let me know your thoughts and comments below. What teams you think you'll win, what teams you think won't win, which players you like, which players you don't like. And again, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button like it owes you money. If you want to know my more immediate thoughts and things, make sure to follow me on Twitter/X at Crawcast. I'll be live tweeting every single game. And heck, maybe I'll live stream a game or two on here as well. So, again, like I said, please hit that subscribe button. It'd be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you on the next one.